I think the main thing was that I got a completely different context for my life. I wouldn't say I was immediately happier, but it's like I was looking at my life from this direction, and then after these workshops, I was looking at from a totally different direction. So my whole experience of my life changed, um, and so there was no turning back, and that was I think that was an immediate result. And then subsequently, yeah, then I then moved sort of step by step, doing my, applying these ideas to my life. So I think immediately my relationships improved. I think it's a greater level of intimacy I found in my relationships, a depth. I'd have real conversations with people, probably for the first time in my life. Conversations that weren't, around just talking about stuff, what was on TV or football results or,
Yeah.
or places I'd been to in the world, or talking about oil or whatever. We were talking about, feelings and emotions and thoughts and more abstract concepts, but actually kind of much deeper and realer.
Yeah, and as you were going down this path, and it was almost like, it sounds like initially you had then a foot in two worlds. You had still your career in Ireland, your friends, and I guess some of the parties still and that kind of thing, and also the beginning of this inner path that you were on. How was that, and how did your friends from your other life, your previous life, what was their reaction to both your interest in it, but also the changes that were happening in you?
Well, I think at least initially, these changes were very much for me only, and I didn't think that I had to share them with anyone particularly. It was about my life, and it was about seeing my life from this different context. So I could even go to these parties and have these, inane conversations, but I took them less seriously. So I was still trying to make them mean something. And once I realised they didn't mean anything, they had no depth, and there was no real significance, except, I think, as the Course in Miracles would say, the love that was experienced between the two people. That's the only thing that's real about a relationship. It's not, the superficial stuff. So I just saw what was that they weren't as important as I had made them. Therefore, I was able to enjoy them a lot more. So I could still do the same stuff, but from a slightly more objective viewpoint.
Yeah, and
slightly one step removed, but not disengaged, but just not so attached and not so caught up in the neurosis.
And you were also able, it sounds like, to bring the deeper connection you were feeling inside of yourself into these interactions as well. Did other people respond to you differently as a result of that?
They noticed the difference. Yeah, I mean, some people I did tell them about what I was doing, but I didn't try to convert anybody or anything like that. But yeah, they noticed. One or two people say, "Oh, there's something different about you. You seem happier. You seem lighter." Those sort of comments, and you go, "Oh, all right," But it wouldn't really have mattered if they hadn't noticed, because it wasn't for them.
Yeah, yeah. And at that point, was it? What was the vehicle? Was it primarily through going to seminars, or was it that you were practicing the course by yourself? Obviously, we'll come to a little bit later in the interview about what the course actually is and what it involves and that kind of thing. But what was your kind of daily, I guess, usage of the material?
Well, actually, it was several years after this first workshop that I actually came across A Course in Miracles.
Okay.
I mean, probably 6 years, something like that.
So in that period, were you doing other workshops, or were you on a path at that point, or were you just kind of dabbling, for want of a better word for it?
Yeah, I think I was dabbling. I was to an extent. I accused a friend of mine of spiritual window shopping. It was like
spiritual tourism, I think let's call it.
Yeah. I think I did a bit of that. But as soon as I found A Course in Miracles, I say 6 years after that initial turning point, I just immediately felt at home with it, actually, and to a huge degree, I've dropped all the spiritual tourism, and just kind of settled on that. And I think that's really important for anybody, whichever path you choose. If you choose, yoga or Buddhism or, whatever, just stick with that. Don't try and, mix and match it with other things. Just, whichever one you settle on, do that. Because I think
Well,
otherwise you kind of do everything an injustice.
Well, I guess there's a level of either people are trying different things, that there's a central commitment to something that it's given enough practice that it can actually be a benefit. Because if you do something different every week and nothing gets any, there's no real chance of integration into life if it's there's not a usage of it.
Yeah.
So you got to the point that you were applying it more in your life as you came more to a Course in Miracles. What happened then? Because obviously you then went on to set up the charity side of it. But I'm curious as to that journey from your own experience to then looking at where you would then take it eventually professionally as well.
Well, again, if I just might add a little bit of the story, so I don't want to miss it out. When I first heard about the book, A Course in Miracles, I said I took a look at it and rejected it, and something told me it was important. So I bought a copy, and again, something told me to stick with it, even though the rational part of my mind was rejecting it, and another part of me was saying this is important. And then there's a great teacher of A Course in Miracles that many people have heard of called Marianne Williamson, and when I first heard her, I again had a similar experience. I couldn't stand her voice. She spoke too fast. She was American. I had all the reasons under the sun to reject her and her teachings. But something told me this was important, and it was her that actually really got me into the course itself. So from that point on, it really took on a life of its own, and I started, even though I knew very little at that point about the course. I mean, I just barely picked the thing up, but there are groups meeting all over the world to discuss and share about A Course in Miracles, and read it together and try and understand it together and all that sort of thing. So I immediately started a group of my own, and people used to gather in my flat, and then I got quite almost addicted to Marianne Williamson, the person I rejected.
Okay.
And she had these lecture tapes, cassette tapes in those days. So this was the early '90s, and I started importing them from the States, and then became an official distributor of her material through the UK.
So you're buying so much stuff for yourself that you got a special discount or something.
Well, I got a license from her to actually make these tapes. So I had a little manufacturing business. It's amazing. I just at each step along the way, it's like, well, what's the next thing? What's an opportunity that has presented itself? Oh, there's an opportunity to distribute these tapes, and there's an opportunity to manufacture them, an opportunity to have this group, and I didn't plan to do any of it.
So you were you come across the Marianne Williamson and the course, and it sounds like initially there was quite a lot of in some ways resistance to the fact she's American, she's speaking quickly, there's this book, and yet you were still following it. There was some kind of internal connection to it, sense that this was something that you needed to pursue.
Yeah.
So I'm curious as to how that was, and was it something you were able to listen to easily, or it took a while to be able to feel that and trust that?
I think once I'd got over that initial hurdle with Marianne's help, really, there was a sense that this was what I had been searching for all along. In my early life, some of the ideas that I'd had as a child, and the emptiness that I experienced as a young adult, that this was the answer. And then there was that voice inside me that was telling me, this is it, this is what you've been searching for, this is the... There was a sense of coming home when I first really got what the course was saying.